Have you ever carried a feeling in your heart that you couldn't quite put into words, only to realize the person you trusted most didn't feel the same way? For many, falling for a best friend is one of life's quiet heartbreaks. It's tender, it's confusing, and it leaves you wondering, where do we go from here? When love doesn't match the way we hoped, it doesn't have to end in silence or distance. It can, surprisingly, become a moment of growth for ourselves, for our friendships, and even for our families, watching how we handle love and loss. Let's walk through a few perspectives that may help. Acknowledging the honest heart begins with recognizing how much courage it takes to admit something so vulnerable. When you confess feelings to a best friend, you aren't just taking a chance on romance, you're putting years of trust, laughter, and shared history on the line. That act alone says something about the strength of your character. Too often, we measure the value of honesty only by the outcome. Did it lead to love? Did it create the ending we wanted? But the truth is, honesty has its own worth, even when the answer is, I don't feel the same. It's like telling a story from your past that isn't perfect, but still means something to you. People lean in, not because the story is flawless, but because it's real. In the same way, your honesty may be remembered by your friend as one of the purest moments you ever shared. Many people shy away from expressing what's in their hearts out of fear of rejection, and in doing so, they carry unspoken feelings for years. That silence often grows heavier over time, almost like carrying a box you never open but refuse to set down. When you finally speak, you release that weight. Even if your friend doesn't return your feelings, you've freed yourself from the burden of what if. That freedom creates space for healing, and it prevents regret later in life when you look back and wonder what might have been. Honesty also nurtures self-respect. When you're truthful about how you feel, you're showing yourself that your emotions are valid and worth being heard. Think of it like a parent listening to a child's fears, even when they can't fix them. The comfort isn't in solving the problem, but in acknowledging that the feelings are real. By being open with your friend, you've told yourself, my heart matters. And that is not a small thing. There's another layer here too. Honesty, when handled with kindness, has the power to deepen a friendship even if it doesn't turn into romance. Your friend now knows the depth of your trust, and while things may feel awkward at first, the seed of respect grows. They see you as someone brave enough to reveal what most people hide. In time, that can strengthen the bond rather than weaken it. Acknowledging the honest heart is not about winning or losing. It's about honoring yourself, honoring your friend, and remembering that truth spoken with gentleness has a life of its own. Sometimes, it's the act of sharing that changes us, not the response we receive. Friendship as a different kind of love is something we often overlook because so much of our culture highlights romance as the ultimate goal. Yet, if you step back, you'll notice that some of the most steady and meaningful relationships in life are not romantic at all. A best friend who doesn't return your feelings may still hold a deep place in your world, one that doesn't need the label of romance to be valuable. It's like a sibling you chose rather than one you were born with. The bond is built not on attraction but on trust, laughter, and the countless little memories you've stacked together over the years. Think of the elderly neighbors who check on each other daily, bringing soup when someone is ill or watering plants while the other is away. That's love too. Not the kind with roses or candlelit dinners, but the kind that shows up at your doorstep with care when you need it most. Friendship, in many ways, is the love that sustains us through seasons when romance fades, ends, or never arrives. It doesn't ask for fireworks, it asks for presence. When you fall for a best friend and they don't feel the same, the initial sting can make it hard to see this truth. You might feel like the whole connection is suddenly less meaningful. But over time, if you allow yourself to see it differently, you realize that friendship itself is a treasure. It's a foundation strong enough to hold disappointment, misunderstandings, and even unspoken longing, while still standing tall. That's not weakness, that's resilience. Friendship's love also teaches us balance. Romantic love often carries intensity, urgency, and expectation. Friendship offers steadiness, acceptance, and freedom. It allows us to be fully ourselves without the pressure of fitting into the role of partner. In fact, many long-term couples say their relationship thrives most when they see each other first as best friends. So when romance doesn't blossom, keeping the friendship alive is not settling for less. It's choosing to honor a form of love that's equally real. At its core, friendship is a reminder that we are not alone in this world. It's the call that comes when you're grieving, the laughter that bubbles up over an inside joke, the steady hand that helps you through life's transitions. It may not look like the love you imagined, but it's still love, the kind that endures. The grieving that isn't talked about often happens in the quiet corners of our lives, where no one else can really see what we're carrying. When a best friend doesn't return the feelings you hoped they would, there's no formal goodbye, no clear ending, no ritual to mark the loss. Yet inside, you may feel a weight as heavy as any other heartbreak. It's a kind of grief that hides beneath the surface, because society doesn't really give us space to name it. People understand breakups, they understand divorce, but what about the unspoken loss of a dream that never even had a chance to begin? This grief is subtle but powerful. It shows up when you catch yourself imagining how things could have been, only to be jolted back to the reality of how they are. It lingers in the small pauses during your conversations with your friend, when you suddenly wonder if they can sense the ache you're carrying. It can even seep into other parts of life, much like packing away a family tradition no one keeps anymore. You feel the absence without anyone else really noticing what's gone. Acknowledging this kind of grief is important, because pretending it doesn't exist only prolongs it. We often tell ourselves we should just be fine, because nothing really happened. There was no breakup, no fight, no drama. But your heart doesn't measure loss in headlines. It measures it in hope. And when hope is let go, something inside you changes. The quiet grief of unreturned love can also be a teacher. It reminds us that love is not only about being chosen, but about learning to release. Much like a parent who watches their grown child move away, there's sadness mixed with pride, a recognition that things won't look the same, but that life continues. Mourning the love that wasn't gives you permission to heal, and in time, to embrace the friendship again without resentment. The beauty of grief, even the unspoken kind, is that it eventually softens. It doesn't vanish, but it loses its sharp edges. One day, the heaviness turns into something gentler, like a scar that no longer hurts when touched. By giving yourself space to grieve the love you imagined, you honor your feelings and open the door to a healthier, more genuine connection with the friend you still hold dear. It's easy to believe that distance is the beginning of the end, especially when a friendship has been tested by unreturned feelings. The natural fear is that stepping back means losing the bond altogether, but that isn't always the case. Sometimes, distance gives both people the chance to breathe, to reset, and to come back together with a fresh sense of respect. Think about adult children who leave their parents' home. At first, the separation feels sharp, but when they return for visits, the conversations are richer, and the appreciation runs deeper. The space didn't destroy the relationship, it gave it room to grow. When you've confessed your heart to a best friend, and the answer isn't what you hoped, the air can feel heavy with unspoken tension. Continuing with the same closeness immediately afterward may feel forced, or even painful. That's why a little distance can be a gift rather than a punishment. It allows you to process your emotions without having to hide them, and it gives your friend the chance to adjust too. Instead of pretending nothing happened, you both create space for truth to settle. This space can look different for everyone. For some, it might mean fewer phone calls for a while. For others, it could mean taking a break from shared routines until the sting softens. The key is that distance doesn't have to be permanent. Like pruning a tree, stepping back can feel like loss in the moment, but it often encourages healthier growth later. When the friendship resumes, it may feel more balanced, because both sides have had time to reflect on what the connection really means beyond romance. The unexpected part is that distance can actually increase gratitude. When you no longer see or talk to someone every day, you start to notice just how much their presence adds to your life. That awareness can make reunions more heartfelt and interactions more intentional. Instead of drifting away, the bond becomes something you choose to return to, not just something that happens by habit. So rather than fearing distance, consider it a season of strengthening. Just as families grow closer after time apart or travelers appreciate home more after a long journey, friendships can emerge from distance with renewed clarity. It's not the end of the story, but a chapter that prepares you both for a different, and sometimes deeper, beginning. Redefining the beginning means shifting the question from, "What did I lose?" to, "What can we build now?" When a friend doesn't return your romantic feelings, it's tempting to see the moment as an ending, a closing door you can't reopen. But friendship, unlike romance, is flexible. It doesn't need to follow a single script to be meaningful. In fact, many of the strongest relationships we carry through life are the ones that reinvent themselves after a difficult moment. Instead of dwelling on the part of the story that didn't unfold, you have the chance to start fresh with a new chapter. Beginnings in friendship don't have to be grand gestures. They can be small, almost ordinary acts that slowly rebuild comfort. A simple phone call, a walk through the park, sharing a meal, or watching an old movie you both love can remind you of the ease you once felt together. These moments work like stitching torn fabric, not erasing the rip, but carefully sewing it back into something whole and useful. Each shared experience becomes proof that connection can exist in new forms, even after disappointment. Redefining also means letting go of the roles we imagined. If you pictured this person as a future partner, a spouse, or the one you'd grow old with, there will be grief in releasing that vision. But there's freedom, too, in allowing the friendship to take a shape that's not weighed down by expectations. Think of it like family traditions. Sometimes an old tradition fades, but in its place a new one is created, not as a replacement, but as a way to honor the bond in a different light. The friendship can move from, maybe romance, back to lifelong ally, which is no less significant. A new beginning also asks for forgiveness of yourself, for having feelings that didn't unfold as you hoped, and of your friend for not being able to return them. When forgiveness is present, the friendship stops being defined by the awkward moment and begins to be defined by resilience. This doesn't erase the past, but it allows you both to carry it with a lighter heart. Redefining the beginning isn't about pretending nothing happened. It's about choosing to value the bond enough to reshape it. In doing so, you open the door to a friendship that can endure, not because it avoided hardship, but because it learned how to begin again. What families learn watching us often goes unnoticed in the moment, but it quietly shapes how relationships are understood across generations. When you fall for a best friend, and it doesn't work out, how you respond becomes more than a personal story. It turns into a living example for children, grandchildren, or even siblings who are observing without you realizing it. Families are like mirrors. They reflect not just what we say, but how we carry ourselves in the moments that test us. If you respond with bitterness or withdraw completely, that teaches one kind of lesson. But if you respond with grace, honesty, and patience, that plants a very different seed. Think of a family dinner where stories from the past are told. Younger relatives often lean in most when someone shares not just their victories, but the moments when things didn't go as planned. In the same way, when family members see you navigating rejection without anger, they absorb the message that love is more than being chosen. It's also about respect, resilience, and the willingness to keep caring in different ways. These unspoken lessons can be as powerful as formal advice. Even older adults, peers, and friends within a family system learn from watching each other. Imagine siblings in midlife seeing their brother or sister handle unreturned love with dignity. It might encourage them to handle their own strained marriages or friendships with more patience. Or consider grandchildren who witness a grandparent staying kind toward someone who couldn't return their affection. That image lingers, shaping how they will handle their own disappointments someday. Families also learn that relationships are not one size fits all. Romance may be the dream, but friendship is just as valid a form of connection. Watching someone choose to preserve a friendship, even after heartbreak, it teaches that bonds can adapt. It shows that walking away isn't the only option, and that sometimes protecting trust and history matters more than holding on to an unmet expectation. What families learn, then, is not only about love but about humanity. They see that vulnerability doesn't have to lead to bitterness, and that honesty, even when it stings, can lead to deeper respect. By handling your story with care, you're giving them permission to see love in broader ways. In the end, your response becomes part of the family's shared wisdom, a quiet reminder that dignity and kindness are choices we pass down, often without even speaking a word. So, where should we begin? Perhaps with gratitude for what was shared, space for what is healing, and courage for what comes next. Not all love stories are about romance. Some are about choosing to honor connection, even when it changes shape. If you've ever faced this kind of heartbreak, share your story in the comments. Your experience may be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you found comfort in this video, consider subscribing so we can keep walking through life's unexpected chapters together.